Mike Tyson stands as one of the most electrifying forces the sports world has ever witnessed. A man whose fists rewrote boxing history and whose name once echoed through arenas like thunder rolling across the sky. The youngest heavyweight champion ever crowned at just 20 years old. The destroyer of giants. The phenomenon behind legendary nights like his 91-second demolition of Michael Spinks. Tyson wasn't just a fighter. He was a spectacle, a storm, a once-in-a-century talent rising from the unforgiving streets of Brooklyn with nothing but raw fury and impossible speed. From a childhood buried under poverty, violence, and abandonment, he punched his way upward with a ferocity the world had never seen. But behind the roar of crowds lay a life carved by shadows. And today at 59, the man who once shocked the planet now faces a different battlefield, one filled with regrets, lingering traumas, fragile health, and the kind of pain that no opponent ever managed to knock out. As we journey through the triumphs and tragedies of this extraordinary life, please consider giving this video a like. Your simple gesture is a way to honor the incredible, complicated, unforgettable legend that is Mike Tyson. It's heartbreaking how the world's fiercest champions often rise from places that tried to break them long before the world ever knew their names. Mike Tyson entered this world on June 30th, 1966, in Brooklyn's Fort Greene Hospital, born into a home already splintered by absence and uncertainty. His biological father vanished so early that Mike later said he had no memory of him at all. What remained was a weary mother, Lorna Tyson, fighting day and night to keep her children afloat as poverty pressed against her like an unending storm. They finally landed in Brownsville, one of New York's harshest neighborhoods, where even hope seemed reluctant to stay. Brownsville in the 1970s was a world of cracked sidewalks, flickering streetlights, and sirens that owned the night. Inside their drafty apartment, Mike learned what hunger, cold, and quiet humiliation felt like. His oversized glasses and soft lisp made him an easy target. "People looked right through me," he later said. With no adult to shield him, Mike absorbed a brutal truth. When no one protects you, you learn to survive alone. But high above the noise on the rooftop, he found the only gentleness life had ever offered him. Pigeons. He built their coops from discarded planks and whispered secrets into their feathers. "They were the first things I ever loved," he said. Then came the afternoon that shattered it all. A neighborhood boy killed Mike's favorite pigeon right in front of him. It felt like the world ended, he remembered. Something deep inside fractured. A fire awakened within him, forged not from anger alone, but from fear, pain, and the vow he carried for the rest of his life. He never wanted to feel powerless again. That vow followed him into the streets. By 13, he had been detained nearly 40 times. Then in 1978, snatching a woman's purse sent him to the Tryon School for Boys. If Brownsville had been harsh, Tryon was colder. Yet the deepest wound wasn't the place. It was the emptiness of the visitor's room. For 9 long months, Mike sat waiting for his mother. She never came. "I thought nobody cared," he later admitted. And then fate intervened. Bobby Stewart, a counselor and former boxer, watched Mike hit a heavy bag with a force far beyond his age. Stewart saw promise. He saw a spark worth saving. It was the first time in Mike Tyson's life that an adult didn't turn away. Someone finally saw him. It's astonishing how a single moment can redirect a life the world had already written off. Mike Tyson walked into the Catskill Boxing Club at just 14. Inside that dim gym stood Cus D'Amato, an aging trainer with eyes sharp enough to pierce through the armor Mike had spent years building. Cus studied him in silence, then he spoke the impossible. I believe you can be the youngest heavyweight champion in the world. Nobody had ever expected greatness from him. From that moment, Mike's life shifted, with a force as sudden as the punches he would one day deliver. Cus didn't simply open his gym, he opened his home, his dinner table, his belief. Mike now slept under a roof, where someone finally left a hallway, light burning just to let him know he wasn't alone. But belonging had a price. 4 a.m. runs through freezing Catskill mornings carved ice into his lungs. 2,000 squats, 500 sit-ups, 500 dips, sparring sessions with grown men whose punches felt like sledgehammers. Yet in that pain, something extraordinary formed. A slow, fragile belief that maybe he could become someone. Cus was molding me, Mike said years later. Not just my fists, but my mind. But every rise demands a sacrifice. In 1982, when he was just 16, his mother, Lorna, passed away. My mother never saw me become anything, he said, his voice cracking even decades later. And in that hollow space, Cus stepped forward as the father Mike had been denied since birth. Cus became his legal guardian. For the first time, someone chose him, not out of obligation, but out of faith. Under Cus's care, Mike transformed into something the boxing world had never seen. Cus taught him the peekaboo style, moving with the precision of a man fighting for his life. In the quiet moments between rounds, Cus would lean in and whisper, "The hero and the coward feel the same fear. It's what you do with it that matters." Those words didn't just teach Mike how to fight. They gave him a philosophy, a spine, a destiny. In the furnace of that tiny Catskill gym, Iron Mike was born. Everything Cus had built inside him ignited the moment Mike Tyson stepped into the ring as a professional on March 6, 1985. At just 18, his debut opponent fell in less than 2 minutes. That year, Tyson fought 15 fights in 12 months and won every single one by knockout. His rise wasn't just fast, it was violent, brilliant, impossible. As 1986 surged forward, greatness began chasing him with terrifying speed. Tyson demolished Marvis Frazier in 30 seconds. Money poured in. Headlines screamed. On November 22, 1986, at only 20 years old, Tyson overwhelmed Trevor Berbick to seize the WBC heavyweight title. In less than 6 minutes, Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history. The purse, over $2 million, meant nothing to him. The deafening roar of the arena only amplified the silence where Cus D'Amato should have stood. By 21, he was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, holding all 3 major belts. Everything built toward June 27, 1988, Tyson versus Michael Spinks, the showdown of the decade, a fight that earned Tyson $22 million. When the bell rang, he moved like a force of nature. 91 seconds. That was all it took. History didn't shift that night. It detonated, flashbulbs ignited the ring in bursts of white. Commentators shouted themselves hoarse. Yet at the center of the chaos stood Mike Tyson, while a softer truth stirred beneath the armor. "I just wished he could have seen it," he whispered years later. Because for all the glory, the moment belonged to the boy who climbed from nothing to stand on a summit. So bright the world had no choice but to look up. Even at the very top of the world, there are shadows that grow in silence. For Mike Tyson, that shadow began at age 19 when he lost Cus D'Amato in November 1985. Cus was not simply a trainer. He was the father Mike never had. Tyson kept winning after Cus's death, but inside he felt as if someone had taken the hand off the steering wheel of a car still accelerating downhill. And 3 years later, when he was 22, Jimmy Jacobs, his gentle manager who shielded him from the darker corners of boxing, passed away after battling leukemia. When Kevin Rooney was pushed from the team soon after, the last guardian of Cus's principles disappeared. Into that emptiness stepped Don King, glittering with promises and temptations that blurred Tyson's sense of direction. I was a kid with too much power and nobody to tell me no, Tyson later reflected. The cracks widened. His young marriage to Robin Givens collapsed under emotional storms and public scrutiny. And by early 1990, at just 23, Tyson entered Tokyo undertrained and unfocused. The world expected another Tyson demolition. Instead, it saw the greatest upset in boxing history. Buster Douglas, a 42-1 underdog, sent Tyson collapsing to the canvas. It felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from, he said later. The fall was not just a defeat, it was a consequence. The descent only deepened. In 1992, at age 25, Tyson faced a conviction that put him behind steel bars for 3 years. It sounded like my whole life closing, he later said. Inside prison walls, he confronted the versions of himself he had spent years avoiding. I was lost, he admitted, but prison also forced him to reflect. Discipline is everything, he later said. Without it, I was nothing but potential. His 1995 return brought cheers, but the victories felt hollow. And in 1997, during the Holyfield rematch, frustration erupted into an impulsive act that shocked the world. The decline continued. By 2005, at age 38, Tyson whispered, "I don't have it in my heart anymore." But the fall was not only physical, it became financial. By 2003, despite earning close to $700 million, Tyson filed for bankruptcy, buried under $23 million of debt. Bengal tigers at $70,000 each, a $2 million gold bathtub, more than 100 luxury cars. He sold his mansion to 50 Cent. Some nights he slept on friends' couches. And yet, even in that ruin, a small ember survived. Some wounds in Mike Tyson's life were never carved by fists. They were carved by love. When he met Robin Givens in 1987, Tyson was 21, undefeated, unstoppable, but emotionally unanchored. Robin, just 23, came from a world of refinement. She made me feel like I could be more, he said. On February 7th, 1988, they married. Tyson dreamed of fatherhood, of finally breaking the cycle of abandonment. "I wanted a family more than anything," he later said, but love built on unhealed wounds is fragile. Fame wrapped around their marriage like barbed wire. Cameras followed them everywhere. The breaking point arrived during a televised interview. Robin spoke about fear and emotional turmoil within their marriage. And Tyson, seated inches away, yet galaxies apart, stared forward in stunned silence. Millions watched the moment their private pain was pulled into public view. "I didn't know how to save it," Tyson later said. By early 1989, less than a year after promising forever, their marriage collapsed. The $10 million settlement filled newspapers, but the real loss lived elsewhere. 4 years later, Mike Tyson crossed paths with Monica Turner, a Georgetown pediatric resident whose presence felt like a breath drawn after years of drowning. When Tyson walked out of prison in 1995, Monica was one of the few waiting. On April 19, 1997, they married. Their daughter Raina had been born in 1996, their son Amir in 1997. Holding them felt like touching a future I never believed belonged to someone like me, Tyson recalled. But beneath the surface, old wounds began to stir. Monica cited repeated infidelity in her divorce filing. "I wanted to be the man my family needed. I just didn't know how to stay steady," he reflected years later. By January 2003, after 6 years of marriage, Monica filed for divorce. "Watching them leave felt like losing the future I prayed for my whole life," Tyson confessed. In the early 2000s, he found unlikely comfort with Saul Sawchittle. And when their daughter Exodus was born in 2005, Tyson said, "She made me gentle. I didn't know I had that inside me." For a brief time, that tiny child softened every hard edge inside him. May 26th, 2009 became the kind of day that splits a life in two. It began as any ordinary morning, and then, in a single instant, the unimaginable happened. Exodus, just 4 years old, became entangled in an exercise machine inside the home. Saul attempted CPR while calling for help. Paramedics rushed Exodus to the hospital. Tyson was in Las Vegas when the call found him. "I just kept telling myself, get there, just get there," he recalled. When Tyson stepped into the hospital, reality hit with the force of a lifetime. Exodus was gone shortly after Tyson arrived. Nothing prepares you for that. No pain on earth goes deeper. It changes you permanently, he later admitted. What followed wasn't chaos. It was silence. An unbearable, suffocating silence. In the years after, Tyson spoke of Exodus not with anger, but with reverence. "Her memory made me want to live better, not harder, just better." This tragedy did not destroy him. Instead, it forced him to confront his past with humility and finally understand the fragile responsibility of love. Some turning points slip into a life so quietly that a man only realizes their magnitude when looking back. Mike Tyson was standing on the edge of collapse, broken by bankruptcy, hollowed by grief, staggering under the unbearable weight of losing his daughter. And then, almost without intention, Lakiha Kiki Spicer stepped into the quiet space the world had abandoned. She had her own turbulent history, a previous prison sentence, wounds she rarely spoke about. Yet nothing in her gaze showed fear of Tyson's chaos. Before anything between them resembled love, it resembled recognition. Two people who had walked through storms, learning to trust silence again. When their daughter Milan was born in 2008, Tyson held her as if she were both forgiveness and future incarnate. And when tragedy ripped through him in 2009, when Exodus's passing fractured every remaining certainty, Kiki didn't turn away. She stepped closer. 2 weeks later, in a quiet Las Vegas chapel, they married, not in celebration, but in solidarity. Those early years were raw, uneven, and edged with fear. Kiki gave birth to Morocco in 2011, holding the home steady on nights when Tyson's quietness grew too heavy. Yet through every fracture, they kept choosing each other, not perfectly, but with intention. Tyson learned to apologize without defensiveness, to show up for morning tennis practices with Milan, even when pain shot down his spine. Together, they forged a life the world never expected them to sustain. More than 15 years later, they are still together. Not because life became easier, but because they refused to let their wounds dictate their ending. When Tyson stepped onto Broadway in 2012 with undisputed truth, he didn't hide behind gloves or bravado. He walked out carrying his truth in his hands. The show became a cultural sensation, grossing millions. From there, film roles, television appearances, business ventures, and motivational speaking followed. By the early 2020s, Tyson had rebuilt an estimated $30 million net worth. Not through destruction, but through reinvention, through wisdom, through choosing growth over pride. There comes a point in every fighter's journey when the opponent waiting isn't a man standing across the ring. It's the quiet resistance of his own body. Mike Tyson entered his 50s, carrying the weight of decades spent pushing himself beyond all human limits. Sciatica flared like a knife twisting along his lower back. His knees protested every step. That truth came crashing in brutally in 2024. Mid-flight, without warning, Tyson was struck by a violent gastric ulcer flare. My body reminded me that time has its own power, he later said. Healing for a man who once defined himself through violence became a new kind of discipline. He traded sprint drills for careful stretches. Some days the pain gripped him so suddenly, he had to stop mid-step. Tyson met each cycle with humility. The toughest fight now, he said, is keeping this body strong enough to enjoy the life I rebuilt. Now at 59 years old, Mike Tyson stands in a chapter of life few could have predicted. His net worth today sits between $25 to $30 million, accumulated through his globally streamed podcast with tens of millions of views, film, and TV appearances, speaking tours, and brand partnerships. His primary home in Las Vegas is a serene haven spread across expansive desert acreage. Inside are sun-soaked living spaces, a private gym, a dedicated meditation room, and a tennis court specially built for his daughter's training. It reflects a man who values order over opulence, calm over chaos, and purpose over performance. His family is the heartbeat of his life today. Milan Tyson, born in 2008, is rising in the world of competitive tennis, training daily, competing nationally. Tyson never shouts from the stands. He leans forward, hands clasped, pride shining quietly rather than loudly. His son, Morocco, born in 2011, brings him joy in everyday rituals. His older children have grown into adulthood, guided by his unwavering support. "My kids are my redemption," he once said. Beyond his home, Tyson gives back consistently, quietly, intentionally. He supports youth programs, mental health initiatives, reentry programs for incarcerated individuals, and local boxing gyms. Over the past decade, his contributions have reached into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. "If I survived everything I've lived through," he said, "then maybe I can help someone else survive their storm." 2. Tyson's life now is not perfect, and he doesn't pretend it is. His body reminds him of its limits. His past still whispers. But the difference today is profound. He no longer defines himself by mistakes. He defines himself by the courage to rise after them. His journey proves something rare and powerful, that a person can lose everything, fall to the lowest depths, break their own life apart, and still return stronger, quieter, wiser. His story reminds us that reinvention is always possible, that healing is always worth the work, and that no one is defined by their darkest chapter unless they choose to stop reading there. If you are searching for strength, for hope, for a reminder that your future is still unwritten, look to the man who fought his way back, not to the ring, but to himself. And from our hearts to yours, may your next chapter be filled with abundance, clarity, strength, and peace. From all of us at Golden American Stars, we wish you a life that is healthy, joyful, prosperous, and guided by the courage to rise every time you fall.